Hi, welcome to the InvestGhana Podcast. I'm sure you're wondering what this podcast is about. Well, this podcast is looking at everything around the investment terrain here in Ghana, and it's being brought to you by the Ghana Investment Promotion Center. We also are being partnered by Akunapod Studios, who have given us their creative studio to do these podcasts. And it's an exciting time if you want to invest here in Ghana, whether you're a local investor or a foreign investor or wherever you're coming from. So we thought the first podcast will bring in the man in charge of investments from government side here in Ghana, and he's joined me to tell us why we're doing this, what you're going to gain from it if you're an investor, and many other questions I'm sure you want to have answers to. Simon Madjie, welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Yes. So you're the CEO of GIPC. Investment is such a key discussion we talk about all the time, as Ghanaians, because we want to bring in the right people at every given time. Now, we've had challenges as a country over the past years and all that in terms of our economy and all that. But from where you sit, steering the ship, when it comes to investments as a country, where are we?
Well, I believe that we've all seen it. We are at the right spot. Ghana is in a better place right now to attract a lot more investment into the country. Ghana has always been a favorable place for many investors looking into West Africa, which is about a market of 425 million people, and into the greater African market of 1.4 billion people. And so Ghana has always been favorable because we are politically stable, we are reform-minded, and we keep working at improving our business environment. And we also have a strong youthful population that's always ready to work. And we have a strong legal systems, and our people are generally ready to work. And so it's much easier within the West African sub-region to attract investment when our macro and microeconomic indicators are right. But currently we are at the right spot. Inflation now is around 3.2. We've improved on the fiscal side. The macroeconomy is very strong. Even our exports are doing well. And so the investors are looking at the market strongly, and those who have put their investments on hold are reconsidering entering into the Ghanaian market, and those who are ready to go are already back in town doing business. So our job right now is to maintain the stability that we have, to give a lot more comfort to the investors that are on the side to return into the Ghanaian market. So this is where we are. I think it's very positive.
It's a good period, isn't it? Let's stay a bit with the economics and all that, because a few years back, maybe 2, 3 years back, the discussion in trying to lure in investments were a bit different because of the terrain. And now the terrain is improving. We even have the likes of Moody's, giving us good ratings and all that. What are the discussions like? You just said that you have the investors who put on things, who coming back, those who are, but what kind of discussions goes in the back room as you're bringing people back in because of the good change we're seeing now?
Well, the discussions is generally about what environment is like. Because when people are investing, or investors come in, whether foreign or domestic, they invest to maximize returns for their shareholders. And so not just about us having a good environment, but also the fact that we have the policies and regulations in place that gives them the comfort that when you invest in Ghana, people can repatriate their profit, and also the assurances that investors are protected, same as local investors. And we have all of these either enshrined in our own constitution, which says that foreign direct investment shall be encouraged, or when you go to our law courts, you get fair judgment, as an investor investing in Ghana. And to add that to the general nature of the Ghanaian is very modern, highly educated, well exposed, and we sit at this crossroad. Some would describe it as the center of the world. Even the geographical location also plays a critical role in the decisions that investors take. So these are factors that are going well for us. But let me go back to my point again. The economy is doing well. I mean, the signals are clear. Government is prepared to hold our side to it, to stay on the path of fiscal discipline, to ensure that we spend what we have and to carry out the reform. So every investor is beginning to look at the efforts that government is putting in, the results that's coming in. Even the rating agencies are changing, the rates that they place on Ghana. And so it's a great and positive place to be currently. And not just that, but if you look at what government is doing, if you look at new growth areas, so we can talk about the virtual assets providers law, which is the cryptocurrency, as a new growth area for many people in this country. That gives comfort to investors that this is a country that's
forward thinking and all
forward thinking. You can look at the reforms at the Securities and Exchange Commission, the reforms on the Ghana Stock Exchange, our modern companies law that really protects even minority shareholders in circumstances that did not exist before, and our own insolvency law, which is also at play here in the country. And even recently, the passage of the GIPC.
Which is what I'm going to come
to. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, since you mentioned it and we are around these laws and regulations, let's talk about it. I mean, what are some of the highlights from this, law that we are all talking? For those who don't know, what are some key highlights from your side?
I think for me, the most important thing is, look, this InvestGhana podcast is essentially to tell the world that Ghana is open for business.
Yeah.
And in our quest to be open for business, we have reformed our basic investment law. You see, so now the law we have is in tandem with the AFCFTA protocol on investment, which enhances protection for investors. We have better investment facilitation. We've taken out the minimum capital requirements, which has become an impediment for most investors here. And we've also improved on our aftercare and investor grievance. We realized that the best story to any investor, or the most convincing story to any potential investor, is the story of existing investors. So we have to improve on our aftercare services and deal with issues of investor grievances before they degenerate into outright conflict. And we've set up all these divisions, but now it's enshrined in law. It shows the seriousness of the country, to project ourselves as the place to do business in West Africa. So these are some of the key provisions in that law. But it also means that the GIPC is now GIP and it becomes an authority. An authority with the mandate to help Ghanaians or assist Ghanaians who want to do business abroad. So Ghanaian business is part of our mandate now. It's also to help them to set up businesses abroad, to take advantage.
So if I want to now go and invest in the US, for example, as a business, you're going to hold my hand.
Let's look at Africa for a start.
Okay, you don't want me to stay within Africa?
Let's look at Africa for a start. Because we are looking at 1.4 billion people. The expectations is that we do have businesses that can go around Africa, set up comfortably, especially in jurisdictions that are much aligned with the Ghanaian one, fairly democratic. They have the same common law, and they speak the language that our businessmen do, and so it will be much easier for them to do business within.
So you hold my hand to go to Nigeria, and I'm excited about that because you hear other countries where they do that. Hold the hands of their business, owners and take them to other countries to expand. So this is what we see from you under this law.
Under the new GIPA, which is the Ghana Investment Promotion Authority law, there's also a lot of work from our side. We've now been legally mandated to deal with issues of fronting, things that affect people in the retail space. The law has been enhanced to give us a lot more powers to really go in there and ensure that people do not front, and that areas that are reserved for Ghanaians indeed remain reserved for Ghanaians as well. So these are good times, I must say. And we look forward to it as much as everybody else, that this is the place to do business.
Because, over the years, with the retail one, for example, you've had Ghanaian businesses complain that they want authorities, the GIPC and the code, to do more to protect them because they see other countries, fronting for, So this will also not just, help the foreign companies, but the Ghanaian companies are going to
help the Ghanaian companies, and especially, our brothers and sisters, the ones in Buta. They will see a lot more collaboration with the GIPC to ensure that areas that are reserved for them indeed remain reserved for them. And the law deals with that. The new GIPA law deals effectively with that as well. There are also improvements in areas that investors look out for, areas like technology transfer. All that process has been re-looked at to make it easier for people to transfer businesses, to transfer technology and skills to their local subsidiaries that operate here. On the whole, this is one of the reforms that remains outstanding, and it's one that will project Ghana into our dream to be the place to do business on the continent.
Yeah, I see you're excited about it.
I am.
So let's look at the investment terrain proper. From where you sit, which areas of interest do you want people to come in, whether it's foreign, local? You can segment it.
Well, the government has priority areas, and we looked at there are traditional areas of investment. I mean, we can go through that because there are investors who come to work in the extractive sector. For those investors, regardless of what happens, they'll come because it's not every place in the world that has gold, and it's not every place in the world that has oil and gas. So you're going to have investors who come to exploit the natural resource and work within that sector. Then you're going to have those who are looking for what we call market efficiency. So they want a place which is efficient, where they can produce and export. And those are the areas we look more into. So I'm sure in the course of the podcast later on, my colleague from the Ghana Free Zones will come and speak to you about what it means to produce and export under the free zone system. So we are mainly looking for investors within that area, in the manufacturing sector, agro-processing, and also in the digital services, mainly BPOs, which is the business processing, outsourcing. Also in the service sector, largely technology. These days, we see many in the software sector wanting to set up in Ghana, using Ghana as a hub. And if you follow closely, you will see what government is trying to do. His Excellency, the President, has spoken about industrial sovereignty for Ghana. So what that industrial sovereignty means is that we need to strengthen our manufacturing sector. And so we are also following that lead, looking for more investors into the manufacturing sector. There's plan by government to process at least 50% of our cocoa beans. It means we need more businesses in the cocoa grinding or cocoa processing sector to do that for export. That still holds and builds for us. And then we are gradually seeing investors coming into the tourism infrastructure space. We've seen the Marriott's already being here. We've seen the Mervyn Pigs here. We've seen the Kempiskis. We do expect to have a lot more who are also in the pipeline looking to really set up a lot, because we do have a great tourism potential in this country. And that's one of the areas to create jobs as well for our people. That notwithstanding, there are still areas to open for investment. We want to see significant investment in commercial farming, to feed industry and to feed us as well, which is critical for our survival as a country. And in other traditional areas known to us, like the financial sector. Remember, the Bank of Ghana recently came out with guidelines on non-interest banking, which is very unique in our part of the world. We are hoping that we'll soon see investors coming into the financial space, looking to the non-interest banking aspect, or even to the commercial banking aspect as well. And all these reforms that are taking place, once again, like I keep saying, is to remind everybody that we are open for business. And so our business environment improvement, as well as linking it with industry, to ensure that not just the citizenry gain, but then the state will also gain, is part of the focus that we're building.
How key are these priority areas to you? Because I see the end game is, of course, benefit to the government, creation of jobs, development of the country. But tell us more about the end game and how key these priority sectors are to government.
Well, the end game is very simple. To one, make Ghana self-sufficient in the things that we produce. So lately, you've heard a lot of discussion around, import substitution, industrialization, which is a significant component of government's flagship policy of the 24-hour economy, primarily to make sure that we are self-sufficient in the things that we produce and consume here, and then help build our export drive within the sub-region, as I've mentioned, and also within the greater African market and to other parts of Europe. As you pretty much aware, China is also coming up with tariff-free, duty-free exports to the Chinese market. And so all of those are opportunities that we want to take advantage of. But the ultimate end game is to make Ghana self-sufficient, to make it a favorable place for people to do business, to thrive, to prosper, and not just prosperity for the investors, but prosperity for the Ghanaian as well. So that has been the objective of government. I believe that is also the objective of all governments.
Other agencies that are coming.
Yes.
So for an investor who is watching you from somewhere who wants to be, get into these priority areas, what would you tell this person in wanting them to come and invest in Ghana? First of all, with the priority areas, then you can quickly go around the other areas.
Okay. So first and foremost, if you're an investor who's not yet considered investing in Ghana, you're missing out. Why do I say so? There's from GIPC, there are over 7,000 registered foreign businesses that we have, combinations, yes. Since they started keeping records from 1994. What this means is that it's been profitable for those who've been doing business here. And so if you are at this moment and you're still going through the consideration stage, if you wait a little longer, or you wait for the next moment, it may be too late. Because whatever area you're looking at, others are aggressively in town doing the research and going to the area. So we encourage everybody who's looking at the Ghanaian market to take the decision now to come into the market. And why do I say so? Because when you come into the market, there are numerous Ghanaian businesses. I mean, fortunately for us, we are more entrepreneurial than many other countries that you can partner with to make your entry into the Ghanaian market much easier. You are also permitted by law to operate as a wholly owned foreign business with no inhibitions by government or anyone else in the areas outlined and even more that could be discovered if you are interested in doing business. So the time is now, and that's part of the reason why you should be here. Tomorrow will be too late. And so now is the time.
Now or never.
Now or never is the time to ask people to come in and invest in this great country of ours. But what's most importantly is also the returns on your investment. We consider that many of these businesses are not here for charity. They are here to really do business. And so the numerous foreign businesses here is an indication that this is a profitable market. And the returns on investment on the continent are quite generous. It's way higher than 20%. Some estimate at 25% if you really invest well and you are very patient in approaching the market, very strategic in approaching the market. What does not work here, and I'll add this quickly, is the feeling that you don't want to be permanent, if you're an investor that you want to touch and go, you are not ready to understand the dynamics and actually operate within the market. Because let me give you a typical example. Ghanaians conduct due diligence by social interaction.
That's right.
So if you're a foreign business, you think the due diligence can be done by any of the top four, accounting firms for you. But the Ghanaian person conducting due diligence will invite you to a funeral or go out to that is how you're being assessed. That's how business is conducted. And this is cultural. So if you're an investor looking at the market, these are the things that you want to look at. And, secondly, we've been going around the country. We've embarked on this project called the Investment Opportunities Mapping. So we've been doing, the investment potentials of all the regions. Now, this has become so important to help with local investment drive, for people to understand that the opportunities in the regions beyond, not just Accra or Kumasi or Takoradi or Tamale, and that some of these regions hold significant investment opportunities that you can really tap in and profit from and grow your business and become the next African giant that we are looking for. So those are the things that we want to put out. Those are the information that we want to share with first our domestic investors and to foreign investors who are interested, as well as our missions abroad and all the other missions that are here. There are opportunities in different parts of the country. Just take a look at it. And if you are interested, the GIPC will be more than happy to guide you through the investment journey. As you know, our job is to help investment that come in within the country and then now help Ghanaians to also invest outside.
Yeah.
But it's your investment journey is with us. We are ready to sit with you to understand your needs, provide you with the data, and help you settle into the Ghanaian market. And if there are any grievances, we have a whole division to manage that for you. So hopefully we don't get to dispute, and
we hope not.
We get the kind of story that we've been looking for.
All right. I want us to quickly touch on brothers and sisters in the diaspora who are also showing a lot of interest to come and invest here. What would you say to them in terms of coming here?
Well, I think that there is no greater investment than for someone who left Ghana who would return to invest in Ghana. Because there is not a question of spirituality. It's a question of creating the source of a whole new wealth. And so if you're in the diaspora and you have money to invest, my encouragement would be you spend some time, you hire the right professionals, and you undertake real studies or research into the areas of interest that you want to embark upon. And then you go along to get the right people to work for you. There is a perception gap that we have to deal with. There's the issue where many people from the diaspora, they invest a lot more in remittances. They help family members out, they build a house, and they are not focused on how do I create a business. And we are offering them that opportunity that, look, you can create wealth.
But why do you think that happened? I mean, it's something that's run for a long time. Is it the experiences they had, or is that something you need to clear, from where you sit?
To be honest with you, the gap from my perspective is a risk gap. So when a diaspora is investing in Ghana, or when they come, they only deal with the people that they know. And that most often is their family members.
That's right.
And the outcome of that relationship is always most likely a disaster. It means money is lost, investment is lost.
Relationships destroyed.
Yes. Which can always be patched by Jantua, people sit down, family resolve it. By the investment, the money is gone. So if we can convince them to move a step higher to actually dealing with professionals who help them to truly integrate, understand the market, you have access to the data, you know what you're doing and which industry you want to go in, and spend time. You understand? You cannot this will make it much easier. Let's look at a foreign investor. How does a foreign investor invest in Ghana? They actually come into Ghana, stay in Ghana, hire the right people and work with them to do that investment. The diaspora investor may not have the luxury of relocating to Ghana. So the gap here is finding the right firms and people to work with. And they are available. I mean, you can always find them to work with. You can monitor your investment as well. But interestingly, I think that to deal with the risk gap, government is also working on the diaspora bond. So a diaspora investor can actually invest in the government bond, or as you may pretty much be aware, we've returned to the domestic market bond. So you can start off by testing the domestic market bond, investing your money in there. As you see it grow, if you get to an area where you actually want to now put in money to grow, then that becomes profitable for you. But if you're a diaspora, I would advise that you look at a few areas. Manufacturing is always profitable. It is a little difficult. It's not too difficult. It is a little difficult. We have to concede because there are challenges here and there, like in every other place. But that is the right place to start from.
So manufacturing,
commercial farming.
Commercial
farming is one other place to start from. And then that's where with skills can start with the services sector. So if you're good in the technology sector, for instance, you build softwares that people can use. That one you can actually minimize the risks of losing out on a lot of things and enter into the Ghanaian market, from that angle as well. But there are several other opportunities. There's opportunities in healthcare. There are no restrictions on the Ghanaian in the pharmaceutical sector. People are building wealth out of the pharmaceutical sector. So diasporans can even look at
those
even as recently as a few weeks ago, we've operationalized the cultivation of industrial Indian hemp. I know, many people in Ghana will see this as a taboo topic, but to the foreign investor, this is a $82 billion global industry, which is for medicinal and industrial purposes that people will be looking at. So you expect people to come into the country to begin to explore ways of looking at this new opportunity as well. So
I like
that's
the
what we're
three
working on.
areas you've given of interest. So the manufacturing, the agro processing, the services, and then
Yeah.
of course some
Commercial
other key
farming. The commercial farming is critical because if you're that, who best can help us in that space than our
Yes.
own people?
Yes.
So
And they'll get good returns when
Absolutely.
they do that.
absolutely.
You've spoken about the foreign investor and specific around the diaspora. And sometimes we talk about investments and we forget about the locals. How do they, jump into this whole investment terrain as well?
Well, earlier on, I mentioned the investment opportunities mapping, and I spoke about us exposing opportunities to domestic investors. So these are the things that we're doing, coupled with the new GIPC authority bill, which now mandates us to work with thriving Ghanaian businesses to go abroad. So the Ghanaian investor or the domestic investor is at the heart of this investment drive of government.
Okay.
Any foreign investor who comes into your country would first and foremost look at the stakes of your local investor. And so whatever is done, and luckily for us, our laws really do not discriminate. So whatever benefits is available to investors. I mean, whether you're a domestic investor or you're a foreign investor, if there are incentives, like His Excellency has announced, under the 24-hour economy, you are going to have, exemptions on your plant equipment, machinery, raw materials, spare parts. It will apply to everybody who will be operating under the 24-hour economy. And so that in itself is not discriminatory. And also, we do have generous incentives. So there are things like locational incentives. The further you move away from Accra, the lower corporate income tax that you pay. You could pay, as low as 18.75 or 12.5 or even 5%, depending on which
where you're going.
where you're located. And these are things that I think the InvestGhana podcast would be talking about, to really put out the information on what it means and it takes to invest in Ghana, and why we are convinced that we are the commercial hub and moving on to be the manufacturing hub within the sub-region.
Okay.
And for now, you can look at Ghana as 34 million people. But in the next 15 years, by 2040 on to 2045 or 2050, Ghana will be 50 million or 52 million. So this is a 52 million market. And in the next 15 years, we should be approaching 40-something million. So what will be the opportunities for all these numbers that will be adding on,
To the population.
but to the population in this country? It means we need a lot more people to invest. We also need Ghanaians to understand that there are real opportunities in this country, and that the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, soon to be authority, is not just for foreign investors. It's also for the domestic investor who is seeking opportunities in different regions of this country beyond the traditional areas of business.
Great. Well, we'll come more into this podcast and what we are all hoping to achieve with it. But, on the African stage, we are losing the FDI. We've reduced to about 3%. How are we insulating Ghana to ensure that the FDI, we don't slip in terms of?
Well, FDI coming into Africa, especially Sub-Saharan Africa, is often based on perception. There's always a fear because FDI is literally people's money. So what that means, money is not easily convinced. It takes a long time to convince money to move. And so what we have to do is we have to keep reforming, like what we're doing in Ghana. Now the reform is also continent-wide, and we have to keep convincing ourselves that we need to tell the story of investing in Africa differently. Let's look at those that are really not the word profiting, but are doing well with their businesses in Africa. For instance, you cannot just get up and come and do business in Africa without looking at Dangote. That's a model right up there. So you have the likes of Dangote, you have OCP, which is in Morocco. And even in our own backyard here, you're beginning to look at Ghanaian giants rising and putting in the work and delivering on the investment. If you look at the investment government had put into the pharmaceutical sector since 2014 to now, that means that we have one of the strongest pharmaceutical sectors in West Africa, and it could go higher as
As
they
we
build on the
progress,
Kina
yeah.
farmers and the Tombicos and all the others that are doing business. Whilst they partner with foreign pharmaceutical companies to acquire the technology and improvements in the, what they call the APIs and those medicines and things that we need for ourselves. So it's changing, but the story can only change when we also talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's why it's good hearing people like you or engaging people like you, engaging the public about what it means to actually invest and do business in Ghana, in West Africa, on the continent. You can see I'm always linking Ghana to West Africa.
You don't play with the
Because
Ghana thing, the West Africa thing.
if you look at Ghana now, you say this is just a market of 35 million, but this is a market that is sitting in
the
zone
center
of
it all.
425 million people, and it's the easiest way to get to the 425
to be
million
hosting
people.
after, that says a lot, doesn't it?
That's the message. We are the commercial hub for the continent.
Right.
It's the message is very clear.
Yeah.
So
You've given key reasons why we're doing this.
Yes.
But in wrapping up, give me 3 reasons why this podcast is so key and what investors will take away every now and then when they watch this podcast.
Well, one, whether you are a local or an international investor, you need information. So this podcast is going to give you on-time relevant information for business decision making. And 2, this podcast is going to brand the country as a place to do business. When we say Ghana is open for business, this is what we mean. It means we are going to talk about the opportunities that we have. And to me, this podcast will also help every other investor in this country, not just listening to us locally or internationally, but they can also come in and share their story about what it means to invest in Ghana. We want to keep it as live as possible and want to remind people that you can think of doing business any place else on the continent, but the only place to do real business is to start from Ghana. And so we welcome them to investing in our country.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Simon Madjie, he's the CEO of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center. I am Vivian Kailoko. Remember, this is an InvestGhana podcast where we deal with everything around investments here in Ghana. And this is the first of our podcast introducing you to what we want to do. Basically, to guide you through the investment terrain, tell you everything you need to know about the investment terrain. So you want to stick with us throughout this podcast to ensure you get everything around the terrain, whether you are a local investor, a foreign investor, wherever you're coming from. Also, this podcast is brought to you by Akunapod. They've offered their creative studio for us to do this podcast. I'll see you again another time. Bye-bye.